Hello and welcome to the day ahead. It is Monday, April 20th. I'm Andrew Gagan. Well, ASX futures are pointing to a strong start this morning. However, this was prior to the latest closure of the Strait of Hormuz, which is set to unnerve investors. The US military has seized an Iranian cargo ship that tried to run its blockade in the Strait of Hormuz, while Iran said it would not participate in a second round of peace talks. This after Iran lifted and then reimposed its own blockade. Well, the reopening of the key shipping route on Friday sent oil prices tumbling and share markets soaring on hopes of US-Iran peace deal. On Wall Street, the S&P 500 and Nasdaq set their third straight record closes, while the small-cap Russell 2000 also posted a record closing high. For the week, the S&P gained 4.5%, the Nasdaq 6.8%, and the Dow climbed more than 3%. Oil stocks fell heavily, led by ExxonMobil and Chevron. The biggest gainers were consumer discretionary stocks, with cruise operators Royal Caribbean and Carnival leading the advances, and United Airlines led the industrials higher. Netflix was the biggest drag on the S&P after the streaming giant forecast current quarter earnings below expectations and announced the departure of co-founder Reed Hastings. Investors will this week look for a raft of corporate results, among them Tesla, the first of the Mag 7 to post results. Others include aircraft maker Boeing, semiconductor company Intel, and consumer products maker Procter & Gamble. Tech heavyweights such as Microsoft, Alphabet and Meta report the following week. Well, Iran has blamed its decision to again close the Strait of Hormuz on the US blockade of its ports, calling it a violation of the ceasefire, and said its navy was ready to inflict new bitter defeats on its enemies. President Trump has called the move blackmail, despite stating that he was having very good conversations with Iran's leadership, and said he's sending negotiators to Pakistan for talks with Iran tonight. However, Iran has denied that it will participate in a second round of talks. Here at home, Finance Minister Katy Gallagher has told ABC Radio that next month's budget will focus on protecting businesses and households from the economic impacts of the war in the Middle East, particularly around the price of fuel and its distribution. And in regards to expected changes to capital gains tax, she said the government had not changed its policies, but that announcements around a focus on intergenerational equity would be made in the budget. Well, US Treasury yields fell on Friday as optimism grew that the Iran war may be nearing an end. The US 2-year yield fell to 3.71%, the 10-year was at 4.25%. Australian 3-year government bond yields fell to 4.59%, the 10-year at 4.95%. Markets pricing in a 75% chance the RBA cash rate will be hiked by 25 basis points at the next meeting on May 5th, and a 100% chance by June. The US dollar index there was little change. The Aussie is trading at 71.3 US cents. Oil prices fell around 9% on Friday after Iran said passage for all commercial vessels through the Strait of Hormuz was open, and President Trump said Iran had agreed to never close the strait again. But it is now closed again, and that has seen Brent crude retrace its losses, rebounding to over $90 a barrel. And the Trump administration has extended its loosened restrictions on Russian oil. Gold again prior to the renewed closure of the strait. Spot gold currently at around $4,830 an ounce. Copper rose more than 0.5%. Iron ore down to $108 a tonne, and Bitcoin is trading below 74,000 US dollars. Well, there's no significant economic data due today. On the corporate front, data centre developer NextDC has requested a trading halt pending an equity raising, while it's lifted its FY26 capital expenditure guidance by $300 million to between $2.7 and $3 billion. And quarterly updates are expected today from Yancoal and Viva Energy, which is due to resume trading following the fire at its Geelong oil refinery. That is your day ahead. We'll see you again tomorrow.